PETWORKING is presented by Maya Strategy Group, a leading market research and strategy consulting firm, helping clients in the pet care and animal health industries navigate strategic challenges for almost 2 decades. Hello, everyone, and welcome to PETWORKING. I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy Group, and here with a really exciting and an episode that hits close to my heart because it brings back the first guest, or at least one of them that we had on the show, Dr. Ginny Renko from Leap Years. And instead of being joined by her partner, Nick Sinclair today, we actually have Dr. Heather Oxford, who is a mobile rehab and acupuncture vet serving the Los Angeles area. You can check her out at heatheroxford.com. But Dr. Heather has some amazing certifications related to aging science, and from my perspective, I'm really looking at longevity and vitality claims as being one of the major trends in pet care and animal health this year. I think we started to see a lot more companies come out with vitality and longevity claims in their foods last year at Super Zoo. Since Leap Years have launched back April 2023, we've seen a few other NAD supplements come into the pet space, and certainly human longevity science continues to advance and increase. So I'm very excited to kind of revisit, to check in with Ginny, see how Leap Years is doing, and get some perspective on NAD and senolytics and aging science from Dr. Heather. So without further ado, Dr. Ginny Renko of Leap Years. Ginny, welcome back. It's
hey, thanks for having me. Really fun. I've been looking forward to this conversation, Peter. We had a good one a couple of years ago, and looking forward to see what we uncovered today.
No, very excited. And Dr. Heather Oxford, Heather, can you take a minute to give us a little bit of your background and your experience with aging science?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me on here today. This is really exciting. I love talking about this topic. It's like something I'm very passionate about. And I feel like my entire education has led up to me going into longevity medicine and anti-aging science. So thank you for the opportunity to speak about it. So just a little bit of background about me. I actually became an epidemiologist first. I have a master's in public health, and that I think served me well through COVID. And then I went to vet school, practiced conventional vet medicine for a couple years before getting my acupuncture and rehabilitation certifications. And then it was not very long after that I was introduced to David Sinclair, who we all know, one of probably the biggest names in anti-aging science, and I met him through one of my high-profile clients and learned a little bit about the research he was doing. This was back in 2019. Learned about animal bioscience and Leap Years. And that really started me on this journey into longevity medicine. And I became boarded. So I have the American Board of Anti-Aging Health Practitioners. So I received that board certification in 2023. And then I wrote a peer-reviewed, published scientific review article on some compounds with preclinical evidence of longevity benefits in companion animals. And that was published last summer in the Journal of the American Holistic Vet Medical Association. So and I have just been in my practice, integrating longevity medicine into what I do. Retrospectively now, I've been doing it for a while, but now it's getting easier with the advent of things like Leap Years on the market. So, yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. That I'm going to want to touch on that a little bit more later because I think, and Ginny, maybe this is a good jumping off point, but, you know, I, I'm a big believer in NAD and NAD boosters and senolytics. I can speak from personal experience. I can speak from what I've seen with Peony. Um, I first tried NAD in my late 20s. I think I read an article in Forbes, and it cited one of David Sinclair's contemporaries, Lenny Garante, and he was at MIT, and I looked at it. I was like, well, if an MIT scientist is saying that this, can demonstrate, you know, reduced aging or healthier aging, I'd love to live forever. And so I started taking it in my late 20s. And I think probably my cells were still functioning normally because I didn't notice, I took it for 6 months and I didn't notice a huge effect. So I stopped, and it wasn't until Western Vet 2023 where I met Nick Sinclair at the Leap Years booth. And I think Nick was really surprised that I knew what NAD was, that I was familiar with the science behind it. But at that point, Peony was 8, and I jumped on the idea of, anything I can do to extend time with my dog, quality time with my dog, I'm going to do. And in the inverse of what I think a lot of people do is, they project their dietary choices, lifestyle choices onto their pets. I looked at it. I was like, well, if I'm going to give this to my dog, I might as well start taking NAD again. So I got back on it, and I will say within 2 weeks to a month, I noticed huge energy gains, weight loss, and I saw a similar thing with Peony. I definitely, shared some videos. I shared some testimonials with you on Leap Years, Ginny. And I've kept her on it, and she's done really, really well. She is 10 now, and unfortunately starting to display a little bit of arthritis, but that was after, 4 2-mile skis and 5 days. And I think it might be catching up with her a bit, but you wouldn't know it seeing her run on the trail. She's still got a lot of energy. On the flip side, I think there are people who are skeptical of it. And the literature is emerging. I don't know if anyone can say it's definitively conclusive science, but you have your proponents of it and you have your skeptics of it. And I know, Ginny, when we last spoke, Leap Years was in the process of conducting a trial. When I touched base with Nick last month, he mentioned, there were some positives from the trial. It wasn't necessarily everything that you wanted to see, but I was wondering, can you touch on that? Because I know there's been some discussion in the community, people latching on to that trial to detract from NAD, and then there's also, the positive elements of the trial, and I'd love to get your take on that, and how you guys feel. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Sure. It went
well. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, we were pleased to have in spring of 24. We're in 25 now, right? In spring of 24, we had our publication of the clinical trial peer-reviewed in a Nature journal, and it was published to show that these NAD compounds, particularly in combination with the senolytic, have pleiotropic effects, right? So what you just described, both for yourself and for Peony, is it affects every cell in the body. So it has different effects in different organs, and the clinical outcomes are different based on how much NAD has declined and how many senescent cells have accumulated by age or by disease, by an inflammatory condition that a dog may have. So I think we were pleased with the results of our trial, meaning that we looked at, in particular, cognition, because when you design a clinical trial, you have to pick an endpoint, Okay, and so we thought, well, cognition is at least a definitive one. We know what happens to dogs with cognitive decline. It's a progressive disease that they get. So with the faculty at North Carolina State University, we conducted this trial, and we did find some statistical significance around cognitive effect. So this marries really what we're seeing in the field when people talk about anecdotes about their dogs, that they wake up. You know, if they're older and they start taking leap years, they seem to be brighter, they seem to be more engaged, these sorts of things. So overall, I would say, you know, this is a supplement. This is not a therapeutic, and this is aimed at supporting function that's already there. So, so we're pleased. You know, I think as we get talking with Heather, we'll see some of her reports of what dogs in the field are feeling and their pet owners are seeing. Yeah, so that's where we are.
Great. No, I mean, Dr. Heather, I would love to hear, from you, what you've seen, where, the types of candidates that you are putting on leap years. Would love to hear your observations of, how it's changed their mood, cognition, energy levels. Before we jump over though, Ginny, you have tons of anecdotes from customers. Any standout all-star stories you want to share before?
Well, anecdotes are anecdotes. So I think the biggest thing I like to share is that clinical trial showed some very promising results around cognition, dogs moving more, dogs being more engaged. But, customers are very enthusiastic when they reach out to us. And we have two types of pet parent that is using leap years administering leap years to their dogs. One is the pet parent of an older dog, and we see the most dramatic effects as the dog is aging, the older the dog is. And the thing that I love to hear is that they get their zoomies back, that after that nighttime, when you're ready to go to bed and the dog decides, hey, this is party time, that pet owners hadn't seen that in their dog in a while, and then suddenly they're zoomy. The other thing is, with so many folks working at home, we have lots of reports of dogs that weren't going downstairs to the office, and now suddenly they're willing to do stairs again. So those sorts of things are make that human animal bond a little deeper, and they get to enjoy more time with the dogs in that way. So those are the two, I think, key areas that we see. Just really about engagement with the owner and the vitality.
Heather,
Yeah.
I'm assuming the way you're nodding that,
Yeah.
this
Yeah, and I feel like
what,
I can expound on that with my experiences in the field with it too. But first, I just want to say, like, your story, Peter, really resonates. That's like 50% of my clientele is I'm talking to them about leap years for their pet, and they're like, wait a minute, what's out there for me? What can I be doing that's like this for me? And then the other half, of course, I'm, maybe seeing a skewed population here in Los Angeles, but several of my clients are already like, is there any like NAD or what can I do that's like longevity based for my pets? And those are the clients that are more inclined to maybe put younger animals on it as a more, preventative or proactive approach. But yeah, so I first started when leap years was first out, I started, putting some of my oldest patients on it. And these are dogs that are like in their teens. And some of them, the clients and I had been working with for years already. And, the clients and I had some quality of life discussions about the pets, right? So they were really seeing a decline. And so I was suggesting, let's try leap years. Let's try this product for longevity and let's see what happens. And those were the patients that by far and away experienced the most rapid and most profound effects. So those were the pets that, you know, prior to leap years, like their sleep wake cycle was completely dysregulated. They were experiencing like symptoms similar to humans with sundowners, where they're just like agitated at night, anxiety, vocalizations, panting, pacing, you know, not getting good quality sleep, then like sleeping all day. Their mobility was terrible. Appetite was terrible. They were experiencing weight gain. And so I put these dogs first on it. And across the board, I saw effects very rapidly. So sometimes I would see the clients would report to me, you know what, after about 2 days of leap years, my dog is eating in the morning. He hasn't eaten in the morning in a couple years. Like it's been all day. I'm trying to get food into him and he'll only eat dinner, right? And so then like you see morning time appetite coming back, which says to me, okay, this product is already probably helping this pet to have a little bit better quality of sleep, maybe, so that their circadian rhythm is getting a little bit more, you know, regulated. And, you know, that's helping them to maybe eat a little bit more in the morning. Some of them, you know, I was seeing, I was able to like quantitatively measure that their mobility was getting better, joint movement, joint range of motion may have gotten better. One of my patients who was 17, for example, his mobility was absolutely improving because after about 2 months of being on leap years, I was able to measure significant increases in limb circumference. So the girth of his back legs was actually getting bigger. He was actually growing muscle at 17 years old. So some of these things were just, you know, unbelievable to me. The effects that I was seeing, and you know, it's hard enough to build muscle on like an active, you know, middle-aged dog, let alone a 17-year-old geriatric patient in 2 months. So some of the effects were just completely unexpected, but very profound. And yeah, I definitely saw like clients have definitely come and told me within about 2 weeks on average of starting leap years that their pets were more engaged with them. They're finding them like following them through the house a little bit more. You know, so that's engagement, but also mobility is improving because they're able to like get themselves up more often and more frequently. Yeah, so I have so many anecdotal stories. So whenever I start anyone on leap years, you know, I always say like, so we're starting for maybe this goal or that goal, but beware that there may be some unexpected positive benefits that you might start to notice as well. So I just invite people to like tell me all the, you know, positive changes that they see within the first weeks or months of starting leap years.
May I add, Peter? Heather, you started to say, and I didn't say the second type of pet parent that uses leap years, and that's in the middle-aged dog, right? So,
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience there? I mean, I have some of my own anecdotes, but I think yours may be more valuable.
Yeah. So for the middle-aged dogs, the people who want to be a little bit more proactive, so that what I have typically seen or heard from clients is that, you know, length of walks, speed of walks, where the dog is on the leash in relationship to the owner, that kind of thing changes most frequently when it's a dog that's already got fairly good mobility. Maybe we didn't appreciate that mobility was, you know, significantly impacted yet. But even in those dogs, you know, maybe after 30 minutes on the walks prior, they were a little bit behind on the leash compared to the owner. You know, they're starting to slow down a little bit. It's typically within about the first month that these middle-aged dogs have been on the leap years, that I start seeing them keeping up with their owners on walks a little bit more consistently. And they, sometimes I've also heard the dog is like asking for more walks as well, which shows that they do have more, some more energy or vitality. Yeah, so it's maybe a little bit more subtle, but you can still see it in these middle-aged dogs for sure.
Ginny, one question I think a lot of people have out there, you know, um, is there any age that's too early to start a dog on leap years, to start a dog on an NAD supplement or senolytic? Is it, I mean, there obviously probably can't be any negative effects, but is there an age where you would say, look, if you start it this early, you're probably just wasting your money, or are there benefits to giving it to like a 2 or 3 year old dog?
Well, I think it really depends on what the dog is managing in terms of any kind of chronic inflammatory conditions or what. Because one of the components of leap years is a senolytic. And it's known that these old cells, senescent cells, contribute a lot to promoting inflammation. So I would say, a young dog, as was your experience, Peter, in your late 20s, you didn't really need an NAD booster, and nor does a young dog, right? But if there's a young dog that has a chronic inflammatory condition, that might be a different story. And it's a matter of how much NAD is being consumed by whatever conditions they have, and then also how much are they accumulating senescent cells that are contributing to this.
Makes sense. And to get back, just as a refresher for anyone who hasn't watched the first episode of Pet Working, can we give folks a quick rundown of the science? I like to take it back when I'm explaining it to people, the high school biology, and you think of mitochondria and the powerhouse of the cell, and the mitochondria feed off NAD, and what you're delivering in an NAD supplement is an NAD precursor to boost production of NAD that then gets the cell back to a higher energy functioning state. I may be oversimplifying it there, but I think it might be helpful for people to get a sense of this is how it works.
There you go. Heather, you want to take that one?
Okay. Yeah, so NAD, I like to think of it as the fundamental cellular energy molecule. So without it, our cells die within seconds. And as we age, our cells naturally just tend to produce less of it. So NAD, it's really important. It has so many functions in the body, but I think one of the most important ones is that it triggers a protein to start DNA repair. And so, getting these NAD precursors into our cells so that our bodies can convert that into more NAD so that we can do more DNA repair and have more cellular energy is so beneficial for health in the present and the future, for longevity. So, yeah.
May
And
I?
I think, go ahead, Ginny,
I'll
yeah.
add the second component of the senolytic. The reason why
right.
leap years is a monthly regimen is because senescent cells have a very important natural function in the body, and that is they have an immune function. They help with wound healing, with any kind of immune response that's needed. So a certain level of senescent cells is beneficial to both humans and dogs. As we age, these population of cells accumulate, and that's when we get into aging is an inflammatory condition. That's when we get into these problems of aging. All of the skin wrinkling is a good example, the joints hurting, all those sorts of things. So with the monthly regimen, each month the dog takes a senolytic for the first couple of days, knocks down that population of these old cells, finishes the month by boosting their NAD, And then it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for senescent cells to recumulate. And so then the regimen just happens all over again.
And, I think it's important to note, you mentioned, this is a supplement. It's not a therapeutic. And, what you just said, Ginny, kind of reminded me of conversation I had last year at WVC, and then hosted them on the podcast, Loyal for Dogs, and they're developing a longevity therapeutic. It's a different mechanism of action than NAD, but one of the big challenges that they mentioned was, in getting it approved as a therapeutic and even being able to have a trial that was recognized by the FDA's, they had to get the FDA to recognize aging as a condition, right? And so when you said, aging is an inflammatory condition, I think, historically, it's been one of those things that we've accepted. Everybody gets old, everybody dies. Aging happens, right? You can't really prevent it. You can't, change it. It's going to happen, right? And I think that paradigm is shifting now, and you can see it in that they have a trial that is ongoing. At the same time, I fully understand it is difficult to conduct a clinical trial with respect to aging, because you have to wait to see, is there any extension of life? It's not something where I'm sure that's a big part of why you designed your trial to look at cognition and not lifespan, because it's, and I think because of that, we're going to see animal medicine kind of lead the way in longevity studies because their lifespans are inherently shorter than human lifespans. But I think people get confused, when they hear NAD, and I want to kind of help set the record straight here. We're not necessarily promising extension of life. We're promising better quality of life, potential, extension of life. And, and again, this is a supplement. And I think people get confused, sometimes with NAD because they think that it's a, engineered molecule therapeutic, as opposed to a functional supplement, like MSM that you might take to help reduce inflammation in your joints. And I think people can get their heads around the idea of functional supplements, whether it's vitamin C or whether it's, echinacea to help ward off a cold, or, omega-3s to, help promote mobility and blood thinning and things like that. But I think people see, they hear NAD and they think, oh, this is chemically engineered. But can you help folks understand this? These are compounds that are naturally occurring that you could get as part of your diet, but just, in the same way that you might take MSM to help reduce inflammation and improve collagen production in your joints, you can't eat enough bell peppers and green vegetables to get those concentrations to actually make it beneficial. Can we go like to like on NAD and how we should be viewing it more as a supplement?
I want to make one small comment, and then I'm going to throw that over to Heather. And the one comment is that the FDA actually defines a supplement as something that supports normal structure or function of the body. Okay, so NAD is a naturally occurring molecule. Every cell in our bodies have it. And senolytics are very common. The skin of apples, strawberries, blueberries all have it. So very different than therapeutics, right? But Heather, why don't I pass that over to you and see your thoughts on that?
The thoughts on therapeutics versus
being
like
a functional. Yeah.
Oh, being functional. Yeah. I mean, NAD is completely naturally occurring. Our bodies should be making it. We can make more of it by fasting and by exercise. It's just that that's sometimes hard for us to do with our current lifestyles and also for our pets. And also you have to think about like our food quality issues as well. And it's very hard, even if you are eating the top quality, best nutrition you can find, it is very hard to get adequate numbers of all of your nutrients and functional compounds into your diet on a daily basis without causing yourself gastrointestinal upset, frankly. So for most things, we do have to use supplements. I mean, there's no way we can't get enough glucosamine and chondroitin in an average diet, to support good joint health. We can't get enough NMN or NR or whichever NAD precursor you want to talk about to really boost our NAD levels substantially either without supplementation. It is really important because a lot of these functional dietary supplements, they're categorized as nutraceuticals and not pharmaceuticals. So it is really important to still select products that have been manufactured in, like FDA approved facilities, that have really good quality ingredients. And you can usually tell if it's like GMP certified or has the NASC seal on it for supplements, because it can be like not all NAD precursors are created equally. Leap Years uses these good quality facilities to manufacture theirs, which is a big reason why I trust that product so much compared to some of the others that are out on the market. But because if you have if you have poor quality sourcing for your NAD precursor, you could actually be being counterproductive for your body. So it is really important that you select the top quality ingredients, which Leap Years is. It's right there on the label for you. So like utmost trust in that, in the quality of that company.
Yeah. And Heather, where in nature, when we talk about NMN and NR, where in nature do we find those? Like, what if I were to, obviously it's easier to take a supplement, but I
Yeah.
always used, MSM made a huge difference for me in recovering from a meniscectomy I had 15 years ago. And I remember when it was introduced to me, it was like, yeah, you could get, bell peppers have huge concentrations of MSM, but
Right.
you can't just sit there and eat bell peppers all day. What's the,
Milk is a good one,
Right.
Peter.
food equivalent of an NAD precursor?
Milk is the
Mhm.
most common source. Do you have others there, Heather? Mhm.
I mean, I would say vegetables like greens, I think are good sources for NMN, or, just NAD precursors in general. I do remember a story about one source of I think it was NMN, that they were actually sourcing it from E. coli, which is not the best source. So that's just an example of like, some sources that are not the best because you can get like, some toxin in that. Yeah, so I think like broccoli, edamame, tofu. There are probably more that you know of, Ginny.
You mentioned milk, Ginny?
Yes, yes. You have to drink a lot of milk to get, high concentrations, but some people love milk. But
And see,
yeah,
that's another example of maybe your gut not being able to take as much
right.
NAD as your body really needs.
Yeah, not too many dogs are drinking milk, that's for sure. Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And
I bet Petey eats ice cream. I bet that.
no, she doesn't. I mean, I don't give it to her very often. It- I've been mixed on what I've read about, she has a very good stomach and can tolerate a lot of things, and she likes cheese, um, but that's lactose free. And yeah, she hasn't. She does occasionally. I put like a goat milk powder on her food, and she goes crazy for it.
Mhm.
And That's from Ferapet Organics, and that's like their joint supplement. They do it in a goat milk base. Um, so that has been cool to see. But yeah, I think like you said, it's difficult, right? I mean, no matter how well you eat, you can't necessarily, you're either going to be doing it to the exclusion of other things in your diet and creating an imbalance. So
Hmm.
I think, when it comes to supplements, whether you're human or animal, you really need to be targeted in what you're doing. And I think that's what a lot of pet parents are looking for is they're looking for supplements that address the challenges that their pet is having, that they're not achieving through the diet that they're giving. Um, and I'm sure we could go off into a whole tangent on nutrition here, but we'll keep the focus on aging and longevity. Ginny, you mentioned, from the senolytic perspective, we're looking at like berries, strawberries. That would be where you would find those compounds in nature.
Yes, apple skin. Never take the skin off your apples, Peter.
I don't. No, that's cool. That's cool. So I guess, where I look, we're not, I don't think we're at a point yet where companies can, reliably like claim longevity. So what we're starting to see a lot of is claims of vitality, and popping up in different foods and supplements. Do you think? I mean, where do you see this getting to a point where we will be able to tie NAD to longevity? Heather, anecdotally, have you seen, I know leap years has only been out on the market 2 years, so it's probably tough to say that, with 2 years data, we're seeing any kind of meaningful extension of lifespan. But do you see it getting there at some point, or are we really
Well,
just
I
more
do.
focused in on the quality time?
Well, I do. I mean, yeah, there's two main categories of like, functional supplements for longevity, right? There's like health span promoting, and then there's like true like lifespan promotion. It's going to be harder to get into the lifespan promotion just because, as you said, it's harder to design those trials because you're looking at such long time periods, right? But health span promotion, that can be looking at just as Ginny had mentioned, just improvements in chronic diseases. You can look at different parameters and see if a supplement for a certain amount of time at a certain dosage is actually improving markers for chronic diseases that the animal or the human is experiencing. And so, yeah, I think there are countless. I mean, NMN and NR are probably the most well studied with the highest number of publications behind them for health span promotion in humans, but across different species. So it's just, depending on what you're looking at, whether it's like liver health or, metabolism, looking at like obesity, even looking at arthritis. I'm just thinking about like some research articles that I saw looking at
Insulin regulation.
insulin regulation, also chronic kidney disease. So, and I also, when I was researching for my scientific review article, I dug into the National Institute of Aging of the intervention testing program. And that program is, it's 3 laboratories that do mouse studies, just 100% mice studies. But they did, they are now looking at, they're starting to test NMN. So I look at also like what government agencies are starting to test as an indicator of, oh, there's some definite interest here in this compound as a longevity promoter. So, they did some with NR. They're starting to do NMN trials now to see what it'll do in the mice for longevity promotion, and that's looking at like lifespan promotion. So, so yes, I do think there are already indicators in the research right now in humans and other species for NAD precursors in promoting longevity, be it health span. And then I think further down the line, we're going to see it as potentially a lifespan promoter as well.
I mean, I read anecdotes of, that if you go to conferences with physicians and you put the question of how many of them are taking NAD precursors out to the room, the vast majority are. But I feel like it's one of those things. My physician has not recommended it to me. In fact, he was somewhat skeptical when I told him I was starting it in my late 20s, and so I just never really brought it back up. Um, and I I think there is still some. You're one of the, Ginny and you, Heather, are the the first veterinarians I've seen actively promoting this. What do you think causes that delta? That you're seeing this sort of like general acceptance among the medical community, and but they're not necessarily recommending it to patients. Overall, do you feel like there is that bridge to cross there? Is that
Well, I think, Peter, that both in human healthcare and veterinary care, we're geared toward treating diseases. And believe me,
it's sick care.
we're busy enough doing that, right? So we don't have a well care system. We have a healthcare system that looks for diseases and then treats them. And I'm sure we could all give examples of our own personal examples of that. So it's not surprising to me. And the longevity field is young by comparison. If you look at the diabetes field or even the Alzheimer's field, and if you put the correlates, to veterinary medicine with cognitive decline studies and these sorts of things, it's a recent field. It's a recent development. So I think things just have to evolve, and more studies have to be published, and then the mainstream will come along.
sense? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I was having a similar conversation yesterday, and it was in regards to WBC, and I feel like I'm in such a unique position because I go and I have the appetite to learn about these things, to see new therapies, to see new supplements, and instinctively I want to try them. I'm an early adopter. But then I go and I bring them up with my vet, or and there's sort of like I don't know if Peony needs that, when I had her in, with the arthritis, I was like, what about Adequan? Do we think she'd be, or Librela? Do we think she'd be a good candidate for that? And it's more, why don't we start her on Ribadyl or Caprovet? And,
Yeah,
it's,
I think that's the case most of the time. I think that's, trying to work within our veterinary box of like doing FDA approved products first because of safety and efficacy. And maybe just a fear in general of like, it's kind of new, and, we don't want to be experimenting. But in the case of leap years, for example, I mean, you're dealing with things that are dietary supplements that you can find in nature, and they have been well studied, and for safety and efficacy. Even though these are not things that will need FDA approval to be released to the market, I feel very confident in the safety of it. And so the way I operate is, my patients need a lot of nutraceutical dietary supplemental support. And so I'm going to try things that I think that have very good probability of helping and next to zero chance of harming. And in my experience, by the way, I have never even seen a patient experience like gastrointestinal discomfort or distress when starting leap years. I mean, it's been very smooth in all the patients that I've started it on. So I feel that helps build my confidence. And then, I think, like as Ginny said, as more vets out there start to get our mutual patients coming in, and they start seeing them looking better, and they're like, oh, what's new? And more and more word gets out there about leap years. I think there will be greater acceptance in the veterinary community, just like in the human community.
I do want to comment on the skepticism, because I think it's a healthy thing, right? I mean, data proves science, right? And papers get published, and then more papers get published, and then suddenly there's a good understanding of things. So I do think we're just early in the tenure of this understanding longevity science and bringing it to medicine. So, healthy skepticism, I think that's a great thing to do, and do the reading, understand the science, and make good decisions.
Yeah, but I think it's a great point, that you make, Heather. There's not really a downside to trying it, right? You're not looking at potentially adverse effects. It's, along the same lines as trying, a vitamin or taking a glucosamine supplement. It's just acting on different pathways and, delivering different results in your body. I mean, I think, potentially, and this is one thing, I think that ties to the fact that we're early in the game. Ginny, I know, we talked about the manufacturing and doing it in FDA approved facilities and the sourcing and things like that. I imagine one of the concerns people have is, if they're thinking about trying it, is cost. And, do you see going forward, is there, as this becomes more widely accepted, as you're able to scale more, do you see efficiencies in the manufacturing process being generated that you're going to be able to bring the cost of leap years down?
Yes. So, of course, we use premium manufacturing, so there is cost associated with that. But as we grow, economies of scale will kick in. And so, yes, we have a 3 to 5 year projection of how we garner those savings and pass those on to our customers, for sure. I want to comment one more thing, though, about being an NASC, that's the National Animal Supplement Council member.
Yeah.
We have responsibility to track and report adverse events. Whether or not we think they're associated with leap years or not, we just track them. So, I think every good supplement company who chooses to be a member of the NASC does that. So the safety record, is documented. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Very true. And, to the question of growth and scale, when we met 2 years ago, Ginny, you guys were just starting out, about to make your first shipments. Where are you at in terms of total customers, subscribers?
Yeah.
How's the growth curve
Well,
evolved?
We're pleased. From 23, which was not a full year, if we annualize that into 24, we have more than 3x the growth year over year. And that's great success, and that also brings great challenges in terms of managing our inventory and making sure that we have inventory available for when customers want it, et cetera. So I think, part of our success also represents part of our challenge. One thing that we noted was that pet parents with very small dogs wanted a smaller size chew. This is a soft chew. So we are actively developing a new SKU that presented a challenge for us that we didn't anticipate. So here we are. That's this year's challenge.
Yeah, that raises a couple questions for me. What would you say the biggest challenge has been so far in your journey? And and feel free to tie this in. Do you see the development of additional SKUs, maybe new flavors, formulations? Obviously, I know dogs get tired from time to time of the same thing again and again. Do you see like a switch up, to a beef flavor or a chicken flavor in the future, or is that too early to tell?
Yeah, all those things are on the agenda. Certainly, some smaller dogs may not like to take that sized chew, so we're making a smaller chew. Thinking about putting it in a little sachet to sprinkle on the food. All these different ways. We have our ear to the ground with customer feedback, so we can respond accordingly.
Yeah, the sprinkles were huge at Super Zoo last year. I feel like
Mhm.
everybody had a sprinkle supplement, raw food sprinkles, freeze dried sprinkles. It was a big, definitely. And then pastes, or water based supplement. I mean, it it's a whole study each year, and I'll see it at Global Pet in a few weeks. But I always make a point of looking at, like, okay, what are the most common forms for supplements? Are we doing chewables? Are we doing soft chews? Are we doing pills or sprinkles? You know, or folks just you know there. I feel like there's always sort of the back and forth with like functional treats. Um, but yeah, it's and so than that, have you manufacturing, obviously, and I'm making sure that you have inventory, but any other notable challenges that you're continuing to experience, you've overcome along the way?
I would say, let me say, I just made a little note here that, I mean, answering our customers' questions about, what they like, and also seeing how we could diversify to meet those needs, I think our biggest challenge right now. I mean, we're a small group, but we have big ideas.
Have you? I know you mentioned you haven't seen any adverse events, no GI upset. Have you received any feedback of anything that your clients would change about leap years, or
Oh,
you're
sure.
are you?
Uh, the every dog is different, when they take a supplement or a medication. And so I would say the most common side effect that we see are GI, where some dogs don't like the taste, so they won't eat it. Or, I mean, it's less than 10% of the dogs. I wouldn't know exactly what the number is. It's uncommon, but and then some dogs do get GI upset with loss of appetite or change in stool or that sort of thing. Those are the most common side effects. Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree. I've heard, maybe I would say maybe 10%, maybe even less than that, of my patients don't like the taste of it. So
Mhm.
it's like the clients are trying to break it up or sprinkle it or hide it in a meatball of something else. You can get creative with how to get it into them. But yeah, I would say that's the only thing I've really heard. I haven't I haven't had any reports to me of my patients having any gastrointestinal upset. It might be something that's subtle and maybe, the owner doesn't notice, or I don't know. But yeah, I'd say it's probably, I mean, I have other supplements that I start patients on for mobility and things that, I mean, I have to prepare the owner. Okay, your dog might have soft stool. We have to, watch for this. But I really haven't felt the need to even give that precaution. But I do just tell people whenever they start any supplement, only start that one thing for, over the course of 2 to 3 days. So you can watch for any kind of gastrointestinal changes at all, so that you can be sure of, because if you're starting multiple supplements at the same time and your dog has diarrhea, you're not going to know what did it. So I just, if you start things one at a time and give each supplement 2 to 3 days to just watch everything, then you can see. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, starting things more slowly. I would say the other thing that I get the most from clients is, and this is not common, but sometimes they just get a little bit confused about the two, the senolytics. They just get a little confused about, like, wait a minute, so have to do just this on the first 2 days and then the rest of the tub. So, but after the first month of that, then they've got it.
I love the way you package that, by the way. I think it's great that you have the Senolytics in there. And again, this was another one where Peony led me because I had my NAD supplement, and then the company that I get my NAD from, they came out with a Senolytic, so I added that to my subscription. And yeah,
You are a true pioneer, Peter.
Like I said, if it can increase my health span, increase my lifespan, and there's really no downside other than the money to trying it, why not? And I've definitely, I've observed positive effects, and I think it's, I understand that, it's not cheap. There's, definitely, there's an audience out there that's going to be able to afford this, but I'm really encouraged, that because I know the NAD I buy is a lot less than peonies. And I think that is just a factor of the economies of scale, the manufacturing processes. They're able to source in bulk. You're able to do bigger manufacturing runs, maybe invest in your own facility, as you get bigger. And hopefully, that occurs on the animal side of things as well. I'm guessing we're still not, cat lovers out there may have to wait a little while longer before they get it.
Indeed.
I always ask Ginny that question because I get that a lot.
As a cat lover myself, believe me, it's high on the priority.
I know people will be excited to hear that. But yeah, no, I'm excited to hear things are going so well. And excited to hear that we've adoption is continuing, and hopefully, between people like Dr. Heather and advocating for it and advances in the science, it becomes more and more of a commonplace supplement that people just add to their regimen. That's not looked at as so specialized. I think we all want to live longer. We all want to feel better, and particularly for our dogs, we only get so much time with them. So you might as well make it as good as you can. And I know that's my focus with Peony every day, and I'm sure that that old adage, everybody thinks they have the best dog in the world, and everybody's right. So I'm sure everybody else feels the same way, and I'm sure you see it, Heather, with I know we didn't touch on it, but I know you mentioned you have some very high profile celebrity clients and that are experiencing positive results with this, and the everyday consumers in Los Angeles as well. It sounds, I think at the end of the day, this is a product that can, make your dog feel better, give it more energy, potentially extend its lifespan, and naturally occurring in a supplement. So I think it's really cool, and I'm excited to hopefully check back in, next year or 2 years and see where we're at.
Great. Well, thank you, Peter.
Any final comment?
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for joining. Anything we missed?
No, I could just say that I love seeing Peony in your office. I can see that she improves your quality of life. So very happy to see that.
She does. She's my coworker, my ski buddy. So yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's like the more dog in your life, more life in your dog, what you guys decided was the leap year's motto. I love that because it's so true, and you see improved quality of life in your pets, and it can't help but improve your own quality of life. And it's a beautiful oh, sorry. Oh,
We still have you.
you still have me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got you. It's a beautiful.
We were dying to know what was beautiful.
Okay. Sorry, there I am. Okay. And it's just a beautiful like symbiosis, that mutuality there just benefits everyone. And that you're not you're not supplementing with anything that's, detrimental down the line. It's just it's all good. So I think it's
I mean, I
wonderful.
think there's so many people, that bond that they have with their dog, whether it's hiking or skiing or, playing fetch in the park. You want that for as long as you can.
Yeah.
Every winter I kind of wait with bated breath of like, okay, does Peony still got it? And every year so far she's, stepped right up to the plate and, um, she keeps running and, she might be a little slower now at 10 than she is at 6, but, um, you know, I can't imagine a winter that I'm not skiing with her. So, um, it, that's what drives me to make sure she continues to keep moving at top speed or whatever top speed she has. And, it's products like this that, make that possible. So,
Yeah.
well, thank
Agree.
you both for joining. It's a great discussion. Looking forward, I'll be sure to report back after WVC next week, see if we have any other aging related developments there. But in the meantime, we've got some great longevity aging related products like leaf years already on the market. So Dr. Ginny Renko, Dr. Heather Oxford, thank you so much for joining. And on behalf of Petworking, I'm Peter Kenseth. We will see you all again soon. Take care.